The One D&D Bard has a really big problem. While the class received a large overhaul in the September Unearthed Arcana, after sitting with these changes for a while, creating a few bards, and chatting with others about the updates, it is clear to me that there is one problematic commonality among the changes made, and that is what we are going to be analyzing in this video. While on the face of it, I would associate the Bard with being a support class, to me, they can really almost do anything. They can be capable combatants and spellcasters, tricksters, and just straight up dragon-seducing sociopaths, and that to me is the magic of the Bard. In a sense, you can think of it almost like a class of classes, and that has always been really appealing to me. Their features like Jack of all trades, expertise, magical secrets, and even their varied spellcasting really lent into the image of whatever niche you want to play, there is probably a way to make the Bard work. But I'm not so sure anymore. When the Expert Classes UA was released, I was super excited. Two of my favorite classes, Bard and Ranger, were both in it and getting some pretty major updates. In my original video about the UA, I even mentioned how happy I was with many of the changes, how I thought they were flavorful or interesting, and was excited to even try them out. I really wanted to like the new Bard, but as time went on and I experimented with the new version of the class, I realized that there were a host of problems lurking beneath the surface, which have effectively stripped the Bard of its identity. Starting with Proficiencies, where you used to be able to simply pick any 3 skills of your choice, they now suggest Deception, Performance, and Persuasion. And yes, while the option of choosing any 3 does still remain, it feels clear that they are certainly trying to push players in a particular direction, and that somehow, by not picking those 3, you may be impairing your character. This might not be an issue for veteran players, but for newcomers, it certainly presents some issues. A similar thing happens if you pick the College of Lore. You are given the bonus proficiencies of Arcana, History, and Nature, whereas previously you could again choose any 3 skills of your choice. These might seem like small and relatively insignificant things, but what they add up to is a character which is being pigeonholed into a certain type of playstyle, whereas their freedom used to be nearly unlimited. Even weapon proficiencies were not spared the mundanity. Bards no longer have proficiency with rapiers, longswords, or hand crossbows. Thankfully, short swords were changed to simple weapons, otherwise they would now start with a weapon that they don't even have a proficiency with. But all of that pales in comparison to the changes to Bardic Inspiration. While I originally thought this would be fine or was similar enough to the old version as to make no difference, I've realized that this is not the case. Exclusively tying Bardic Inspiration to a reaction is problematic, as it drastically limits the action economy of the Bard. I hope you weren't planning on being a melee character with that short sword you started with, because you'll never actually get to make an opportunity attack anymore. But the problems only get worse from here. Bardic Inspiration now sits in this really awkward position of receiving a buff that it certainly deserved, but having that buff feels so awkward to use that I find myself simply longing for the old version. And on the one hand, yes, now knowing your inspiration dice is always going to hit and not go unused, since it's essentially being spent immediately, can be satisfying, but on the other hand, I always enjoyed the give and take that front-loading inspiration offered, which simply doesn't exist anymore. And again, yes, on the face of it, that may sound like a personal preference, but I can assure you that it goes deeper. This is not to mention that using Inspiration is now in direct competition with not only opportunity attacks, but other Bard subclass features like Cutting Words, Mantle of Inspiration, Mobile Flourish, Infectious Inspiration, and Mantle of Whispers. Oh, and if you picked Counterspell or Shield from Magical Secrets, well, good luck. To be clear, I am in favor of needing to make important decisions in the heat of combat. I think it's something that can certainly bring a lot of excitement and drama to a game, but this just feels excessive and almost crippling to a player with options. All of this brings me to the new Bardic spellcasting, but before we discuss that, if you haven't seen my previous 1D&D videos, I'll link the playlist here, and leave a comment below to let me know what you think about the new Bard, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss all my 1D&D content. The new Bard spellcasting is weird. While I do like that they became prepared casters, as this allows players to have a more interesting and situational decisions to make, I do not like the limitations on spell schools and the way that spells must be prepared. When choosing spells, bards can now only prepare spells that are both on the new arcane spell list and belong to the divination, enchantment, illusion, or transmutation schools of magic. This means that bards now lose access, outside of magical secrets of course, to some very iconic spells like Mage Hand, Bane, Healing Word, Silvery Barbs, Dispel Magic, Tiny Hut, Mass Healing Word, Speak with Dead, Dimension Door, Eye Bite, Magnificent Mansion, and Prismatic Wall, just to name a few. The problems here though extend far beyond the spells that bards no longer have access to, but is rather endemic to the limitation of their spell pool. With the spell pool significantly narrowed, it becomes increasingly difficult to differentiate one bard from another, which can result in all of them just feeling samey. The issue here is only exacerbated by the fact that they now must prepare an amount of spells per day equal to the available spell slots at each level. For example, a 5th level bard has access to 4 1st level spell slots, 3 2nd level spell slots, and 2 3rd level spell slots. As a result of this change, they have to prepare 4 1st level spells, 3 2nd level spells, and 2 3rd level spells. Prepared casters of old would be able to choose their spells in any combination they desired. This means that if they really wanted to, a player could opt to prepare exclusively 1st level spells. The impact of this change is again on build and playstyle diversity. While the divination, enchantment, illusion, and transmutation schools are fairly large in terms of spell quantity, they are, however, not exactly rich on spell quality. Admittedly though, there are certainly a number of top-tier spells in each school. Which again lends itself to the reality that many bards may simply end up the same. Again though, what this does is severely hinder players' options to feel useful or creative, as it is highly likely that most seasoned players will ultimately pick roughly the same spells, which ends up leaving what was once one of the most varied and customizable classes feeling predictable. The problems of spell mundanity are not over yet though. The class feature Song of Rest also received a revamp, which was certainly needed, as the old version was rather bland and uninteresting. The new version, instead of a little bit of extra healing during rests, grants spells at certain levels. The same spells to every single bard. At 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 10th levels, every bard will receive Healing Word, Lesser Restoration, Mass Healing Word, Freedom of Movement, and Greater Restoration, respectively. All of these spells, which were restricted due to the spell school limitations, are now simply given to the class for free. This just feels like a very cheap way to give bards access to the spells that they always should have had access to, just with extra steps. It's almost like they were writing the spell list and then they realized what would be missing and tried to figure out a way to just band-aid the problem. And all of this has somehow managed to make the now 18th level capstone, Superior Bardic Inspiration, feel less bad. But rest assured, it's still bad. Admittedly, it is better than the old version, simply by virtue of not needing to have 0 inspirations available. It is a genuinely much improved feature. The problem with Superior Bardic Inspiration is that it doesn't even do what it says in the name. This is not a superior version of Bardic Inspiration at all. It just happens to grant you a few extra uses. As I mentioned in my first video on the topic, it simply just fails to capture my imagination and doesn't leave me awestruck like the first time I read the Barbarian capstone feature. This does not feel like a reward worth playing a campaign all the way to 18th level for. I want an actually superior Bardic Inspiration. I'm not sure what that looks like. Maybe it allows you to front load it in some way, or maybe it functions similarly to a Divination Wizard's Portent dice. I'm not sure what it should be, I just know that this ain't it. While in all of these 3 ways, changing proficiencies, adjusting Bardic Inspiration, and overhauling spellcasting, I truly believe that the Bard class has largely been stripped of the identity that it once had, and that is really disappointing to me. To be clear though, I don't think that streamlining a class is a bad thing, and I am all for providing helpful suggestions. I genuinely love that they now provide suggested spells at each level, and I think this will go such a long way to making one-shots easier to prepare, and to help new players just get a grip with the class as well as spellcasting. What I don't like is that this was done, in my eyes, at the expense of the very essence of the Bard class itself. At the end of the day, I still love the Bard, and I truly have hope for the class. I believe that the team is doing the best that they can to cater to the wants and needs of so many different types of players of so many varying skill levels. I get it. I really, really do. but that doesn't stop me from hoping for something a little bit more on the next version of the class. If you like this video about the future of D&D, maybe you'll like this one as well, about one of the most insane dungeons of its past, or some of my other One D&D content. It's all linked on the screen now. Let me know in the comments here what you think about the revised One D&D Bard. What did I get wrong, or what did I get right? I'd love to know. If you like this video, leave a like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on all my One D&D coverage. Take care.